Okay, we're rolling.
This is an interview at the New York State Military Museum, Saratoga Springs, New York. It is the 15th of September 2004, approximately 11:45 p.m. a.m. God. The interviewers are Mike Russert and Wayne Clark. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
This is Gary W. Hogan. I was born June 28, 1943 in Mineola, New York.
Okay. What was your educational background prior to entering service?
High school.
Okay. Were you drafted or did you enlist?
I enlisted.
Why did you enlist and why did you select the Army?
Well, I like the Army. I've been around the military all my life because my father worked for Pan Am. And when I lived in Turkey for 5 years, I've been around the military and I kind of liked it. And I figured I needed to straighten my act out, so I did it. And I went to Fort Dix, went through basic training, then I went to radar school in El Paso, Texas. And then I got stationed in Key West, Florida for 2.5 years. Tough assignment. It was right after the Cuban crisis. And I volunteered for flight school then because I always wanted to fly. And
Had you ever flown that much before that?
no, not at all. But I always wanted to do it, so I tried it and I made it. So I went for the interview up at Fort Rucker. The interview was interesting. This major asked me what the range, I was in a Hawk Missile Battalion. So this major asked me what the range of a Hawk missile was, and I said, you don't have a need to know, I can't tell you, sir. And we went back and forth, and he said, who invented the helicopter? Who had invented the first helicopter? I said, Leonardo da Vinci, and he died. He said, no. I said, no. He goes, of course, he got the first contract in 1943. Da Vinci designed the first one. And we went back and forth, so I got in flight school. So I went through flight school, and I ended up where we are now.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about your training? Do you think in retrospect, your training was adequate for Vietnam?
Well, I had 210 flight hours through the whole course. And to go to Vietnam on 210 flight hours, it's not, you're never ready. And when you got there, they taught you how to fly.
Now, did you train at Rucker or Fort Walters?
I went to Mineola, Fort Walters, and my advanced flying was at Fort Rucker. As we got into the Hueys, we did the instrument flying. And then after that, I went home for 30 days and I went to Vietnam. But I think that you could have 1,000 hours, it's not enough. You have to get shot at and be in combat to know what it's like. And the guys that were there, that were aircraft commanders, the ones that really taught us how to fly. And when they left, we were ready to be aircraft commanders. And the company I was in, they all came together. So most of them left together. So 6 weeks after I was in country, I was an aircraft commander at 23. And I flew different people every day that came into the company to train them how to fly. And it was very interesting what you can do when you're 23 years old when you want to. So I was a assault helicopter slick pilot for 7 months. And I did, of course, this was the 68th Assault Helicopter Company. And
Now, when were you in Vietnam?
May of '66 to May of 1967. And so I went from the slicks, which is the troop carriers, to the gunships. And I flew big model Hueys, and then I transitioned to the C model Hueys. And I flew them until I left. I wanted to be in guns because I got tired of getting shot at. And it was time to shoot back. And I felt that my time on the ground was, it should be in the air a little bit because you get shot at so much you're going to get hit. And I got shot down once outside of Tay Ninh. I had a major with me and we were doing an aerial. He was a spotter for the artillery. And the man that was with me, I had made him an aircraft commander, and now he was my company commander. And he kept flying in the same altitude and the same airspeed. And I said, sir, you got to change it. This will get hit by a quad of 50. And a fuel cell, they just ripped the fuel cell out and all the fuel come out. And I took it and shot a rotor rotation to the artillery base camp. Then after that, we did an operation, a secret operation with the special forces that we trained for. And we went into, what we were doing was going into Cambodia and trying to capture North Vietnamese officers for interrogation. So we worked together with a team, a lieutenant, like 2 sergeants, and 4 Cambodians. We'd go in and we take them out we put them in, and we put them in and take them out. And that was when some friends of mine got killed. Sergeant Anderson and Newberg. And what happened was they were down with the Cambodians, and they got compromised. And the Viet Cong killed Anderson and Newberg, and the Cambodians got away. When I went in to get them, I said, "Where are Anderson and Newberg?" They said they're dead. So I took them out, and we set up an operation, went back in and got them. We landed back at the Michelin plantation, which is French rubber plantation. I sat on the skid and cried. Never made another friend. I had acquaintances, but no good friends, because you just couldn't do it. That same operation, before that, we were doing an operation, same thing, and we dropped in 2 sergeants and 4 Cambodians, and I wasn't the lead ship, I was the chase ship then. And they got
What do you mean by being a chase ship?
What happens is, when we did that operation, there was always another helicopter behind it. So if they had a problem, we could get them out too. Or if they couldn't get the troops out, the guys on the ground, because they got hit, we go get them. So this time, they got compromised, and one of the Cambodians got shot, and it was dark, getting dark, but I knew, because I had followed the track, pretty much where they were, because they're off an old French road. So I got the sergeant on the phone, and I said, when I pass over you, stick a pen light in the air, and it's so dark, you can see anything. And he did. And I stopped at a hover. We dropped down these McGuire rigs. The McGuire rigs are a rope about 100 feet long, and it's got a rig on the bottom of it so you can sit in, and you can put your wrist in a D string, so if you fall, it still has you. And so what happened was we got the two of the Cambodians out with that, and then we had the sergeants. We couldn't get them out, so we dropped the rope ladder. Got rid of the McGuire rigs, and I went lower. And every time I went lower, I was in a bamboo grove. So it was throwing. What was happening is the bamboo, the blades hitting the bamboo, and it was cutting it up. And finally, I got down low enough we could drop the ladder, and they got on. The 2 sergeants, the Cambodian went up, and the 2 sergeants held the other one was wounded, and I climbed out. Well, that time, I was getting shot at by the VC, and I couldn't move. I just stayed there. And when I didn't even know I was getting shot. I was concentrating on what I did. So they got out. Everybody was okay. And when I got back to this base camp, I got out of the helicopter, sat down on the ground, and I couldn't move because the adrenaline was going through my body. And this colonel by the name of Kelly, who's from Forest Hills, he's a full-bird colonel with the Special Forces, came up and says, he said, "How you doing?" I said, "I can't get up." He says, "Why?" I said, "I just went in my pants, sir," because I was scared. So he went back, got me a bottle of bourbon. We sat there and drank it on the ground until I was straight. But people, we all took care of each other. I think the worst thing that happened to me was I got target fixation. But a week before I was coming home, and we were down in the Plain of Reeds. There was a tree. I could find VC anywhere. After a while, I became very good at finding them. And there was a tree in the middle of nowhere, and there was a guy sitting underneath it, and I saw him. So I went down and did a gun run, and I went on him, and I'm looking at him. I kept going lower and lower and lower. And finally, I fired the rockets. But I was so close when I fired it, and I broke off, that it was an ammunition dump. And everything went up in the air. My helicopter was full of mud. And it was a mess, but we got out of there. But that was the last time I flew in Vietnam, because it's time to come home. I got 1,230 combat hours I was there. And it was time.
Now, what rank were you at that point?
Chief Warrant Officer.
2?
Yeah.
CW2?
Yeah, CW2. And then I was, I went back to Mineola, became an instructor, pilot. And then they wanted somebody with gunship time to be a test pilot on a Cobra project. So I volunteered for that, and I did that for 7 months. And I actually crashed a prototype in a peanut field in Alabama. It didn't work that day. And I walked away from that too. And then I went back to Mineola and finished my service as an instructor. About 2 months after I was going to get out, they offered me a commission as a second lieutenant, and I laughed at him. I said, "Why don't I want to be a second lieutenant? I'm already a chief warrant officer." So about a week before I got out, somebody from Washington called me up and asked me if I wanted to stay, and they make me a first lieutenant. And I said, "Where am I going to go?" "They're going to go for a Cobra company in Vietnam." I almost did it. And then I changed my mind, but I love the service. It was just a time for me to leave.
Mhm.
And that's it.
Do you, how do you think the rules engagement, what do you think of the rules of engagement that you had to work under?
Terrible. Terrible. Sometimes we couldn't fire into a place because there was people there that they said were friendlies, and I knew they weren't. One time I did a gun run on this person that was running across the field, and they called me off in the command and control helicopter and told me not to fire. So I broke off the target. When I broke off, because we flew in, two gunships flew together. When I broke off the target, this one that was supposed to be a woman carrying a baby, there was no baby in there. It was just a bundle full of clothes because they all had long hair. He came out of the tree line and got my partner. Not bad, we got him. Then we went, once I was down in out south of Duckwa, and we went on a simple combat assault. And that's when I was flying the slicks. And that combat assault lasted 3 days because we found a North Vietnamese NVA regiment down there, and we got into a firefight that lasted 3 days, and that was a mess. I went in. I knew the guy was North Vietnamese regular, and he jumped into one of those, into the window of one of the hooches, which you know, the house. Came out the other side dressed in saffron robe, and I killed him. And when I did that, the command and control ship saw me and told me to go back to the staging area. I was in trouble. So what I had to do was I had my wingman cover me. I went down, they picked up the body and threw it in the helicopter. So then in the staging area, and I threw this guy over my shoulders. I walked up to this colonel and I said, "Sir," I told my name. As soon as I get Warrant, I was reporting, was directed, and I dropped the guy at his feet. I said, "See his uniform, sir?" I said, "He's NVA." And there was a guy in his civilian clothes standing next to him. I said, "Who's he?" They wouldn't tell me. So the colonel apologized and said, "Look, I'm really sorry." I said, "You guys could have got me killed." I turned around and walked away, and the civilian said, "What do you want to do with the body?" I said, "Anything you want. You wanted them, you got them." But that's what we had to do. The rules of engagement stunk. One time, when I was in the gun platoon, we had to take the traces. Every fourth round was a tracer out so they couldn't see where we were shooting. Because if one of my machine, either the crew chief or the gunner, shot somebody that was supposed to be in big trouble. So at night we sit down in the revetments and take the traces out so they couldn't get after us. Because we work with the Special Force, and the things I did, I was on combat assault every day. And you couldn't take a chance. And I used to tell my guys, if he's wearing black pajamas and he doesn't stop, shoot him. You tell him to stop, and if they don't stop, then you hit him. Because what they used to do, the South Vietnamese sometimes, when it jumped out of, when we were in combat assault with them, they jump out of the helicopter, and if they thought they were going to have a problem with the VC, they turn around and shoot at us. So my crew chief and gunner knew that if they turned around, shoot them. And one day this guy turned around with an M79 grenade launcher, he's going to let us have it, and he killed him. In fact, he got the whole squad. I got back that night, and the first sergeant said, "The old man wants to see you." So I went and reported, and I told him what happened. And I said, "I'll do it again, sir. These men are not going to get killed because those people decide to change sides." I said, "They're going to die." And I did it. When I had in the gun platoon, I had started counting people. I killed 130 people, and I know I did. Those are the ones I saw I killed. And that gets you, because I started to like it. And a lot. I didn't write home at all anymore. Finally, about a month before I was going to get out, my Red Cross said my mother wanted to talk to me, so I went and talked to her, I guess Saigon, on the phone. And I said, "I'm not coming home." She started to cry, and I snapped out of it. Because I was going to stay in as long as I could to do what I was going to do what I did well. And then I got home, and I was upset because I thought I left my friends down, because I could take care of them when they went in the combat assault. But they had other people. I didn't realize that. There's other people that did a better job than I did. But I always felt bad about leaving them there. But then they came home too and left somebody else, so it was just amazing. But that's how you feel. And once I got home, it was okay. I didn't like what they did to us when we got home. When I got to Travis Air Force Base, we got out, and then we went to, I think it was Oakland, to come home. And that night, 3 of my friends that I went to flight school with, 2 of my friends, Larry and Ray, and I went in a room in a motel because we got to leave the next day. There's a bowling alley across the street, and all he had was the uniforms. So we go across the street, we're sitting at a table, he asked for a drink. Nothing. So I went to the bartender and I said, "Can we have a drink, please?" He says, "We don't serve people like you in here." So, "What are you talking about?" He said, "We go back to killing people. You're baby killers." And I smacked I broke his nose. Got 3 drinks, sat at the table, and this policeman comes in, and he says, "Why don't you guys come with me?" And we did, went outside. He says, "Look, nobody likes you here. I'm going to take you to get some beer, whatever you want. Go back to the motel and stay there till tomorrow." And he was a retired sergeant, because thank God we got him. But then we got home. I got to the airfield to get on a plane. And you remember they used to have the hair fairs for college and military? But we had priority over there. So when I got there, they took my ticket and put it on top. You know, this kid says, "What are you doing?" He says, "Well, he's military, he's priority over you." And he looked at me, spit right in my ribbons. And I had no idea why. And
So you weren't aware of this while you were over?
we heard of it, but we didn't, you know, we couldn't believe it. So this guy from American Airlines pulls me across the counter and says, "Come on," puts me on the plane. And I'm sitting on the plane, and guess who sat next to me? The guy that spit in my ribbons. And I hit him in the solar plexus. Got up, and they put me in first class. As soon as we landed at Kennedy, they said, the steward says, "We're going to pull up to the gate. You get off now when I tell you to." She said, "Because this guy's going to call the police." And they did. They went home. But I didn't understand it. I never did. I mean, all we were doing was our country wanted us to fight. A war. It was a war that maybe we shouldn't have fought, but we were told we did what we were supposed to do as soldiers. And that's what we were trained to do, and that's what we did. And after that, I wouldn't salute the flag, stand, put my hand on my heart or anything. And then I stopped that. That was stupid. Then 9/11 came. And I was a funeral director. I had a couple of businesses, and I sold one. Before 9/11 happened, I volunteered to do this mortuary disaster team. Mm-hmm. So if something happened, we go help them. Well, 9/11 came up. And I ended up working, but I got into the public health service. And I worked with them all during 9/11 and doing DNA and things like that. I worked from 12 at night, 7 at night to 7 in the morning. This is a guy that hated the United States, what it did to me. I started working again. And then after 9/11, we were put in Homeland Security. And now I'm in Federal Emergency Management Authority under Homeland Security. So I train. I go once a year for training in Albany, and then I do stuff on the computer. And if there's another disaster, I go. And but I'm gonna do it 1 more year, and I'll be 62. I'm gonna quit. But that's what I do now. Mm-hmm. But that's it.
Okay. Do you think you kind of alluded to this? You don't think you received the adequate training until you got over there? That you on-the-job training actually?
Yeah. No, we didn't. I mean, I think the training now is much better. Mm-hmm. But I mean, this is the beginning of helicopter warfare, mm-hmm. and they didn't know. So most of the things we did in Vietnam set the precedent for helicopter warfare. They didn't know it. So, you know, I don't blame them. I just don't think they knew, and we didn't have enough flight time or experience or training. But that was beginning of helicopter warfare for the United States.
What do you think about the equipment you had, the helicopters themselves?
The helicopters were fantastic. You could do anything to them. They're unbelievable. I love those helicopters, and they were good. I mean, you could do almost anything to them and they'd still fly. Mm-hmm. One time the hydraulic system went on my helicopter, and we were pulling people and extracting people out of a landing zone. We had to go back in. So I gave the crew chief my holster, my .45 holster, and he made O-rings out of it. They lasted longer than the rubber O-rings. And they work well because they stay moist. Mm-hmm. But
now, what kind of sidearms did you carry?
I carried a .45, and then once in a while I carried a .45. And when I was flying slicks, I also carried either a carbine or a riot pistol hung over the seat. And then, but the 45, I just couldn't. The 45 because we had armor plating on both sides, but the bubble was up front. I used to put the 45 here to help out with armor because you couldn't have anything with it. But when you're flying, it wasn't much good to you anyway. But then when they flew gunships, we just carried the 45, and that's all we had. We didn't need anything else. You know. But the sidearms we had, we used, I was a sharpshooter in a pistol, 45, and expert marksman in an M14, and never shot him again. The M14, I didn't. I used the pistol a lot when I was over there, but not to just to keep myself training how a shooter once in a while. But then I didn't use it.
I know you also talked about this in a way. What was your feelings about the Republic of Vietnam's army?
They were terrible, and they was so corrupt. It was unbelievable, and the officers were underpaid. I mean, the Cambodians and the Chinese nuns that work with us got more money than a first lieutenant in the Vietnamese army, and you put them in on a combat assault. You stop at the staging area, they walk back to the staging area. Every time we went to pick them up, we were compromised. If they stayed, we were shot at. I mean, there was no way in the world that they did anything. And that was one of the things that we resented a lot. We fought that war for them. I knew when we left it was over. Because that war was over. They couldn't win anything. They couldn't. And they didn't have the adequate arms either. But with the training. And I don't think they really wanted to. All they wanted to do was stop the war and go on with their lives. That war was fought for since World War II. And Ho Chi Minh, after World War II, asked us for help, and we didn't help him. Yeah. And that caused a lot of problems. That's when he decided to take his country back from France, and then we got involved.
How do you feel about our involvement? I mean, I know you said you were there to do the job you were supposed to do, but do you think we should have been involved now that you back, or?
Well, if you take the domino effect that they kept telling me about, it wasn't true. The Vietnamese people would have stayed under communism and still had better living conditions because of what we did caused a lot of horrible problems with them. And now it's over, and there are hotels over there. The hat I have in a car was made in Vietnam. So we could have had that a lot earlier, and a lot of people didn't have to get killed. And but you fight a war because your country says you have to, and they have. I think that's what you got to do. The draft dodges I saw when I got out, I was a civilian pilot working at LaGuardia Airport, and this guy comes up to me and he says to me, he was looking for a charter for his son to go to Canada because he was going to be drafted. So you're talking to the wrong guy. I said, you better find somebody else because I'll turn him in. And I would, because that's not right. Your country is your country in America. That's why I went to 9/11, because we got problems that we now here. And that's a new problem. And if I was 25 years old again, and I was a helicopter pilot, I'd be in Afghanistan, or I'd be in Iraq doing what I'm supposed to do. Because it's our country, and that's what we're fighting. We're fighting a war. To stay alive in this country, to stay as one now, because we got big problems. And the terrorists, it's very different war. And well, we got to make sure they don't get in there. They're already here, but I mean, as far as the cells are concerned, but I think we're going to be able to stop it. I hope so.
Could you hold these up in front of you? Tell us when, where they were taken.
This is in Benoit, and 1966, and that's when I transitioned from troop ships into gun platoon. Because those are the guns right there. That's on the mission. I was with the Special Forces. That's why I had those fatigues on, and that was, I don't know what I put the date in. I forgot when I did that. Like 11 December, maybe January.
Okay. There's another one there too, isn't there?
Yeah, it's basically the same thing when I went to the gun platoon. And it's January here.
Now, on that Special Forces mission, you were the jungle fatigues. You didn't carry any other weapons just in case, or?
Oh,
did you-
yeah, I had a 45. And in these pockets was survival gear. And then I had another gun. It's behind me in the thing. It's like I had a riot gun, shotgun. And Charlie was he had a M1 carbine. Because when we went down, we had to get out of there quick. One of the things I used to tell my crews, if we get shot down, what do you want me to do? I said, if I'm wounded, I want you to shoot me. What do you want me to do for you? Because I didn't want to be captured. And I said, if you can't run, what do you want? And they do whatever they want. Never happened, thank God. But I was worried because, especially with us gunship pilots, they didn't like us much.
Did you ever join any veterans organizations?
I belong to the VFW and the AMVETS and this Helicopter Pilots Association.
Okay. Did you ever stay in contact with anyone that was in service with you?
John Clifford. My friend John's in Alabama now. And then I see the guys at the conventions. But I only see them at the conventions. We don't really hang out together. And I always see them and we talk. It's amazing the camaraderie you have when you go to one of those helicopter pilot conventions. You can talk about things you hadn't talked about in years, and you get it all off your chest. It's great. It's very good.
How do you think your time in the service had changed or had an effect on your life?
It made me a lot better person. I feel when I joined the service, I was having a lot of problems. And I joined the service, became an officer, and changed my whole life. And for the good, for the good. The service was the one, I liked the service, I did a lot. But when I got out of this, I got out of high school, I was having trouble. So, this straightened me out. Then when I got out of the service, I went to school. I'm a funeral director now. I own a business on Long Island. It's a crematory. And if it hadn't been for the service and teaching me discipline, I wouldn't have gotten where I am now. It's very good to do that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you. Hey.
We